Tonight, the world of international trade is experiencing a seismic event, one that will ripple through every corner of the globe, affecting industries, governments, and everyday people alike. Imagine the sound of a Supreme Court gavel striking down a policy that has defined global commerce for years. That single moment, that decisive action, is sending shockwaves through boardrooms and households from New York to New Delhi. This isn't just about economics or politics, it's about the price of your phone, your car, and the stability of jobs from Ohio to Shanghai. The products you buy, the work you do, and the opportunities you pursue are all shaped by these global decisions. The Supreme Court's decision today will echo far beyond Washington, reshaping alliances and rewriting the rules of global competition. Leaders around the world are recalculating their strategies, and new partnerships may soon emerge. For years, the global economy has moved to a tense, unpredictable rhythm, conducted by tariffs and trade wars. Every shipment, every negotiation was shadowed by uncertainty and the threat of escalating costs. Businesses struggled to plan for the future, consumers paid more at the checkout, and international relations grew strained as trust eroded between trading partners. But today, the music has changed. The tempo of global trade is shifting, and a new sense of possibility is in the air. The Supreme Court has introduced a new theme, promising a shift in the global order. This is more than a legal decision. It's a signal that the world is entering a new era of cooperation and competition. This decision touches everyone: farmers in Iowa, tech workers in California, factory workers in Germany. No matter where you live or what you do, the effects will be felt in your daily life, your workplace, and your community. The Trump-era tariffs were a fundamental reorientation of America's relationship with the world. Their removal is equally fundamental. It's a reset that could lower prices, open new markets, and change the way nations interact. We're at a pivotal moment, entering a new chapter in the story of global trade. The decisions made now will shape economies and societies for years to come. Tonight we'll break down what this historic ruling means, why it happened, and what comes next. We'll explore the winners, the losers, and the opportunities that lie ahead in this new landscape. The gavel has fallen, and its echo is just beginning to be heard. The world is listening, and the next moves will define the future of global trade. What happened today? The Supreme Court declared the sweeping Trump-era tariffs unconstitutional. For years, the U.S. placed special taxes on thousands of imported products, especially from China, to protect American industries. The court ruled that the way these tariffs were imposed overstepped the executive branch's constitutional powers. For you, this could mean lower prices on everything from sneakers to washing machines as tariffs disappear. American businesses that rely on imported parts may see costs drop, boosting competitiveness and job growth. Internationally, this ruling signals a return to more open, predictable trade policies and could help repair strained diplomatic ties. The decision clarifies the balance of power between the president and Congress on economic policy. It sets a precedent for future administrations. Major trade decisions require congressional approval. In short, a legal decision about trade law has reshaped America's economic landscape and its global posture. To understand today's decision, let's look back. In 2018, the Trump administration launched aggressive tariffs, arguing the U.S. had been exploited by unfair trade practices, especially from China. Tariffs began on steel and aluminum, then expanded to hundreds of billions in Chinese goods, sparking a trade war. Allies like Canada and the EU were also hit, and China retaliated, hurting U.S. agriculture. Supply chains were disrupted, businesses scrambled, and global growth slowed. Supporters saw tough negotiation, critics saw higher costs for Americans and damaged alliances. The tariffs' impact was complex and divisive, setting the stage for today's historic court ruling. The world watched as the U.S. redefined its role in global trade. Today, the Supreme Court ruled in a landmark 6-3 decision that the Trump administration's broad tariffs were an unconstitutional overreach of executive power. Chief Justice Roberts wrote that imposing tariffs on such a vast scale is a legislative power, not an executive one. The court found that Section 301 of the Trade Act was never meant to allow the president to unilaterally reshape trade policy. Plaintiffs, from small businesses to multinationals, argued the tariffs were arbitrary and harmful. The dissent argued for broader executive authority, but the majority drew a clear line: Congress controls trade. This decision doesn't just end these tariffs, it sets a precedent limiting future presidents' power to impose them. The ruling redraws the lines of power in Washington on trade. The immediate effect: the tariff wall comes down. Long-term, Congress reclaims its authority over America's economic relationships. The numbers tell the story. Behind every headline and political debate, there's a mountain of data that reveals the real impact of tariffs on the U.S. economy and everyday Americans. At their peak, Trump-era tariffs targeted more than $350 billion in Chinese imports, with some rates soaring as high as 25%. These sweeping measures were designed to protect American industries, but the effects rippled far beyond the intended targets. Studies show that the costs of these tariffs were passed almost entirely to U.S. consumers, amounting to over $1,000 per year for the average household. Everyday essentials, from electronics to groceries, became noticeably more expensive, squeezing family budgets across the country. While some industries, like steel, experienced short-term gains and a brief boost in hiring, many more sectors lost jobs as manufacturers faced higher costs for imported materials. The ripple effect led to layoffs and plant closures in towns that depended on global supply chains. Retaliation was swift. China and other countries imposed their own tariffs on U.S. exports, hitting American agriculture especially hard. Farmers saw their crops go unsold, and entire harvests were left to rot in the fields. U.S. agricultural exports to China plummeted, forcing the government to spend billions in emergency aid to support struggling farmers. The uncertainty left many rural communities on edge. The trade war ultimately hurt both sides, and instead of shrinking, the overall U.S. trade deficit actually widened. The intended goal of reducing the gap between imports and exports slipped further out of reach. Business investment declined as companies faced uncertainty about future costs, and the stock market became increasingly volatile, with investors reacting to every new development in the trade dispute. The data is clear. The tariff strategy proved costly, with far-reaching and often unintended consequences that touched nearly every corner of the economy, from Wall Street to Main Street. The experiment in protectionism left a lasting mark on the economy, changing the landscape for businesses, workers, and consumers alike. Now, as tariffs are dismantled and trade barriers begin to fall, the numbers will shift once again, setting the stage for a new chapter in global commerce. The question remains: will the benefits of open trade outweigh the costs of protectionism? Only time, and the data, will tell the full story. The Supreme Court's decision sends ripples through politics, the economy, and society. Politically, it checks presidential power and demands congressional involvement in major economic decisions. Internationally, it opens the door to repairing alliances and re-engaging with global institutions. Economically, supply chains will realign, and inflation may ease as import costs drop. Some industries will face renewed competition, while others will benefit from lower input prices. Socially, the country remains divided. Some see this as a return to normalcy, others as a betrayal of American workers. Communities dependent on trade may celebrate, while those who felt protected by tariffs may feel left behind. The challenge addresses legitimate grievances while adapting to a post-tariff world. The conversation about fair trade and American jobs is far from over. What do the experts say about this landmark decision, and what could it mean for the future of U.S. trade policy? Dr. Evelyn Reed of the Brookings Institution calls this the most significant judicial intervention in U.S. trade policy in a century. She explains that the ruling reasserts Congress's constitutional role in shaping trade, potentially shifting the balance of power away from the executive branch and back to lawmakers. Trade lawyer Michael Chen says the ruling brings much-needed relief and stability for businesses, ending years of uncertainty and operational headaches. He notes that companies can now plan for the future with greater confidence, knowing that sudden policy changes are less likely. A former U.S. trade representative sees a chance for America to rebuild credibility with allies and lead on global trade reform. This, they argue, could open doors for new agreements and stronger partnerships. The U.S. can now address challenges like China's trade practices through alliances and established rules, not just unilateral tariffs. Experts believe this approach could yield more sustainable results and reduce the risk of trade wars. Labor voices urge caution, reminding us that the old system didn't work for American workers either. They stress that simply changing the rules won't automatically solve deep-rooted issues facing the workforce. The ruling removes one tool from the government's arsenal. But the problem of unfair competition remains. Many worry that without new solutions, American industries could still be at risk. The next step, experts agree, is to develop smart, targeted policies to help American workers and businesses compete in a rapidly changing global economy. This includes investing in innovation, skills training, and modernizing manufacturing. Simply removing tariffs isn't enough. Congress must act decisively to create a fairer, more competitive environment for all. The path forward requires new strategies and real support for domestic industries, ensuring they can thrive and adapt to global challenges. The debate over how to protect American jobs continues, with experts, lawmakers, and workers all searching for lasting solutions. What does this mean for you? For consumers, expect lower prices on imported goods as tariffs disappear, though it may take months to see the full effect. For workers and industries using imports, costs will drop and demand may rise. Exporters and farmers could see markets reopen and revenues recover. But workers and industries once protected by tariffs may face new competition and uncertainty. Policymakers must help these workers transition, ensuring no one is left behind. The economic deck is reshuffled, creating new winners and losers. The challenge: share the benefits of open trade broadly and support those affected by change. Where do we go from here? The Supreme Court has closed one chapter and opened another. The debate over fair trade, national security, and American jobs isn't over. It's just moved to Congress. Leaders must now forge a new, bipartisan consensus on trade, supporting workers without harming the broader economy. The lesson: protectionism has costs, but so does unchecked globalization. The path forward is a balanced approach: open markets, strong safety nets, and international cooperation. As citizens, stay informed and engaged. The power to shape our economic destiny is back in the hands of Congress and the people. The road ahead is long, but for the first time in years, the map is back in our hands. The next chapter of American trade begins now.